Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, here we are to continue my AFL 2023 3-game match reviews. And in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the middle three games from round 16, and those games are the Western Bulldogs versus Fremantle, Gold Coast versus Collingwood, and Essendon versus Port Adelaide. Alright, so the second game on Saturday afternoon was between the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle at Marvel Stadium. Huge clash this one was going into it. And huge win here for the Western Bulldogs. They break the bye trend. They had the bye last week. They come out and they win. And this is just a huge game in the fate of their year. Their year was probably relying on this game. And so was the Dockers. Their year was going to be so important on this game as well after last week. Great effort against Essendon. Great win against Essendon. This week, very disappointing towards the end of the game for sure. They were in this game until the last term. This game was theirs to be won or lost. And the Dogs started off well. They fought back with the second lot of 3 goals in the first term. Second term, 4 goals to 3, so the Dogs just get a little lead. And then the third quarter, the Dogs kick 2 goals to 1, so they extend their lead out. And then the last quarter, the Dockers kick the first 1-2, which makes it 3 in a row for them. Before then, the Dogs just go back. They kick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals in a row. And then a couple more later on in the term, they kick 7 goals to 4 in the final term. That's what helps them run away 29-point winners. Dogs 16-6, 102 to Freo, 11-7, 73. 134 fantasy for Sarong, 126 for Darcy, 122 for Cox, 116 for Bontempelli and Henry, 111 for Treloar, 109 for McRae, 108 for English, 102 for Brayshaw. Goals behind now, 4 goals for Hugo Hagan, who looked really good. 4 goals as well for Walters and Amos, who also looks really good as Guy Amos. He's been great in their side this year. 2 goals for Waitman Norton as well. Disposals 38 for Sarong, 33 for Henry, 31 for Cox, 29 for Brayshaw, 27 for Bontempelli. 13 marks for Cox, 9 for Hugo Hagan, 7 for Ryan. Tackles 12 for Treloar, 10 for English, 9 for Liberatore, 8 for McRae. Now to hit-outs we go, where Darcy won the hit-outs very comfortably indeed, 50 hit-outs, but however, English and Lobb shared the duties and did pretty well. 30 for English, 13 for Lobb, 6 for Tracy, 3 for Jackson as well. Team stats now, whereas the Dogs that went inside 50 an extra 6 times, the Dockers 52-46. The Dockers did have more of the footy though. Clearances was the Dogs 47-34, 12-10. Centre 35-24 stoppage clearances. The Dockers, however, won both contested and uncontested possessions. They won marks as well, did Freo, but the Dogs did lead for most of the game. And in the end, huge win for their season. They win by 29 points. Now to the most disappointing game of the round, in my opinion. Gold Coast versus Collingwood at Heritage Bank Stadium, the Saturday twilight slot. We've had a couple of really disappointing games so far this round. We had Richmond getting smashed by Brisbane, who would have thought that, and now Gold Coast getting smashed by Collingwood in their biggest test of the year. This was going to tell a lot about Gold Coast, and it was definitely disappointing to see them not put up a fight at all. But then again, on the flip side, Collingwood are the best side in the competition after this performance, no doubt about it. Gold Coast 5-12-42, smashed by Collingwood 18-12, 120. Collingwood win by 78 points, and this is definitely a disappointing game for Gold Coast. Collingwood jetted off early in the first term. Took them a little while to get on the board, but once they did, they were off and running. And then the second quarter, 1 goal for the Suns, 7 more for the Pies. The game's over at half-time. The Suns, believe it or not, do win that third quarter despite it getting out to, I think it was like 10-94 at one stage. They drew it back a little bit, and then in the last quarter, they kicked 5 behind, so Collingwood 4 goals, and that's what helps Collingwood go on to get a really nice win here. They're the best side in the competition, no doubt about it. 150 fantasy for Dacos, who was the best on ground. 123 for Anderson, who always keeps trying, no matter how good or bad his team's going. 113 fantasy for Noble, 105 for Power, 101 for Flanders and Mitchell. Goals behind now, 5 goals for Elliott, 2 goals for Hill, Ainsworth, Rao, Frampton. Disposals now, 36 for Dacos, that's Nick Dacos, 35 for Anderson, 30 for Mitchell and Noble. Marks now 10 for Ballard, 9 for Ellis and Fiorini, 8 for Anderson, Power, Maynard. Tackles 10 for Dacos, 8 for Rao, 7 for Crisp. Hit-outs 29 for Witts, 13 for Cameron, 11 for Cox, 5 for Casbolt, 1 for Frampton. Team stats now, where it was a smashing in inside 50s, 45-62. Still surprised the Suns actually went inside 50 45 times in the end. They probably should have been in there maybe 30 odd times. But Collingwood still win that area pretty comfortably anyway. Clearances, 17-22 stoppage clearances favour the Pies. They won contested and uncontested footy, as you'd expect. They took way more marks inside 50, 8-16. But yeah, they lead for the whole game. Big win here. They lay more tackles as well. But look, this is just a huge win. Gold Coast, at the biggest test they were going to have this year, they've definitely failed. You'd think finals after this performance, especially at home as well, goes out of the equation. But yeah, Collingwood huge winners here by 78 points. Now to the Saturday night game, arguably one of the games of the round, probably the game of the round, probably, I'd have to say. But it was Essendon 10-14-74 defeated by Port Adelaide 11-12-78. Port Adelaide win by 4 in the end. They had to earn this one. They're almost doing a bit of a Collingwood of last year. They're winning all these close games. They saved a goal on the siren against Sydney back in round 4. This time they kick a goal on the siren to win the game in round 16 against Essendon. And Essendon was so close to breaking that streak, and it was going to be a win which they needed. Yes, they'll probably still make finals due to the easiness of their draw. They still play teams like West Coast and North Melbourne still to come, and some easy games as well still to come for them as well. So I wouldn't think that they're not going to make finals from here. They might be an unlucky side which gets pushed out, but I don't think so, just with how easy their draw is, especially considering they got really close to the power in this game. And it was just probably the first quarter where they didn't really show a lot of effort, both sides were pretty poor in this game, making some really poor and silly turnovers at times, but it was 2-2 to 2-7 at quarter time, and Port Adelaide had way more chances. In my opinion, they probably should have been up by 20 at quarter time and had a healthy lead and probably won the game by 20 in the end and not have to worry about the Bombers' comeback. But the Bombers are on, and it was over the terms of quarters 2 and 3. In quarter 2 they came back. Port Adelaide kicked a couple of goals in a row though, just to reassure themselves at half time. But then in the third quarter, it is 1 goal for Port, and it is 3 goals for Essendon, which gives them the lead at 3-quarter time by 9 points. Into the final term, Port Adelaide kicked 1, 2, 3, 4 goals in a row. The Bombers come back for the next 1, 2, 3, and then Port Adelaide, thanks to Houston's 50+ metre bomb on the full-time siren, on the siren after the siren, helps them win the game. He gets it there by maybe like I don't know how long it was, but he only just got it there, just with the distance. Accuracy was no problem. It was always going to be the distance, which he's a booming kick. Probably anyone else besides him or Farrell on the team probably wouldn't have made that kick, but he did, and yeah, he was the match winner in the end. 145 fantasy for Rosie, 125 for Parrish, 124 for Houston, that match winner, 114 for Merritt, 102 for Butters, 101 for Caldwell. Goals behind, 3 goals for Langford, who has proven to be such an important player for the Bombers. 3 goals for Rosie, 2 for Caldwell, and Guelphy disposals, 32 for Houston, 31 for Merritt, 29 for Parrish. Marks, 9 for, 25 for Farrell and Butters as well. Farrell was such a good ball user as well. 9 marks for Rosie, 8 for Heppel and Butters, 9 tackles for Rosie, 7 for Parrish and Drew, hit out 33 for Phillips, 8 for Dixon, 7 for Finlayson, 4 for Wiedemann, 3 for Wright, and 2 for Vicentini, who was the late call-up, who made his debut just moments before the bounce. And Port Adelaide did get smashed around in hit outs, as you'd think, with no real recognised ruckman there, and Bryn Teakle's their backup one, but obviously he's out due to injury as well at the moment, so didn't really have anyone to cover for that either. So ruckman not great for Port Adelaide at the moment, but still though, even though they got beaten in there, that's still enough to win the game. +5 inside 50s for them, as you'd think. They got smashed in hit outs. But clearances was relatively even, 30-28 for the game, 10-12 Senate for Port, 20-16 stoppage for the Bombers. Bombers won both contested and uncontested footy. Marks inside 50, 15-12, surprisingly enough. Both teams made some really shocking turnovers at times though. Port Adelaide did lead for just under 3/4 of this game, but look, when the rain did come down, it did make things even more interesting. It added another factor, but this game that had everything about it, what a thrilling game it was in the end. Port Adelaide win it by 4. Alright, so now to Sunday's footy action today. Some huge games coming up. Hawthorn versus Carlton is the first one at the MCG. That one will probably be the game of the day, I reckon. Huge rivalry, huge game for both these two clubs. They're not playing for finals anymore, they are playing for pride, but as you guys can see, the ladder position here is going to be quite important in terms of where these two clubs might end up, and After Hawthorn having a disappointing week last week, they'd want to be bouncing back for sure. So no better side to do up against than a rival in Carlton. There'll be a big crowd there. The Alice Springs game is Melbourne and the Giants at TIO Traeger Park, the Channel 7 game. That one's pretty big because, I mean, look, you have a feel that the Giants will be competitive in this game. And the final game around, what response are we getting from West Coast after their dismal performance last week? They'll be playing the Saints in the West. Now to the ladder, and look, we see some interesting movement here. We see that Port Adelaide and Collingwood are the two that are off and away. Brisbane getting more separation. However, Melbourne, they're still to play today. If they lose, well, top four will be interesting. But yeah, the Dogs, they go up into 5th. The Crows get some huge percentage boosting. They're into 6th. The Saints are in at 7. And then the Dons, 8th. The Cats, that draw puts them into outright 9th at the moment. The Dockers go up. They were in 11th. Now they're up into 10th due to the Suns losing that percentage. The Swans, with their points, go up into 12th, equal with Richmond. But they're in 13th. The Giants are in 14th, which a win today would be massive because it would take them up to 10th. But if they get the win, then Carlton are in 15th, which if they get the win, they could go up into 13th. So there's definitely going to be a bit of movement today around this part of the ladder here. I'd be looking from maybe 12th to 16th. There could be a lot of movement there, and then there'll probably be a little bit of movement up here as well, especially due to the Saints and the D's having some big games today. So there's definitely movement coming up after those important games. Look back on the round so far. Let's see what we've got. So Brisbane, obviously, smashed Richmond by 81. The Swans and the Cats drew in the grand final rematch. And then Adelaide defeated smashed North by 66. And then these games here, Dogs over the Dockers by 29. Collingwood smashed the Suns by 78. And Port Adelaide defeated the Bombers by 4. Next round, really quick look ahead. Huge game here on the Thursday night between Richmond and Sydney. You think it's probably your really last chance here to do something special. Especially for Sydney, who you think might still actually have a little chance. Richmond, you think they're probably out. But again, that's going to be a huge game on the Thursday night. Friday night, Dogs and Pies, that's going to be a big one. Then Saturday, Brisbane and West Coast. That will be very interesting. I wonder how that one will go. And then, Giants Hawks is Saturday twilight game. Giants Stadium. Saints D's big Saturday night game. Obviously, their games today are going to be huge. Next week's game is going to be just as critical. Port Adelaide and the Suns, the second Saturday night game. Geelong and North, first game Sunday. Essendon and Adelaide is probably going to be the biggest game of next round, alongside Saints D's and Richmond Sydney. And then Fremantle v Carlton finishes off the round at Optus Stadium. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Please do make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. See you guys next time on the channel. Thank you guys so much. Bye everyone. Flame Footy out.